castle, a wizard's tower, a townhouse, all viable options for your home base or bastion for your players to use in any tabletop campaign. But when campaigns can range from hell to space, you may need to think a little bit more outside the box. If you do not know what bastions are, put simply, they are the new system in the updated D&D Dungeon Master's Guide that allows players to build, maintain, and operate essentially a home or headquarters. But you could use these homesteads for any sort of system or setting. So, here are 100 unique bastion ideas that your players will never forget. Going into some general ideas first, it might really interest your players to come upon a haunted house and retrofit it for their needs. It would make for great storytelling if all of your hirelings were ghosts or specters. Another dead thing you can take advantage of are the bones of a dead creature. Hollow out its bones for a wonderful entertainment room. If you are ever on an adventure and complete a dungeon, ruins, or ancient temple, why not turn that around and retrofit it as a home base? Lots of already empty rooms, and just reset the traps for a natural defense. Keep out more unwanted guests by putting a hidden base behind a waterfall, and hope that anyone passing hasn't played enough Zelda to look there. If your players ever get a chance to inherit a prison, why not make it a second home? Use the prison inmates as the hireling labor force and be immune to the criminal hireling event outlined in the DMG. Another great place is the sewers. Sure, it stinks, but plenty of room, and mutant turtles found it a great place to stay, so probably good enough for you too. Speaking of using structures for different uses though, be a troll under a bridge or make the inside of a bridge your home. Or a water dam, potentially getting a limitless supply of free water and power. Might have trouble sleeping through all of that noise though. Or if you're more in the mood for wind power, cozy up inside a large windmill. If you also find a subway or underground railway empty, why not put up some walls and call it a home as well? Get it working again for quick transport between each other's bastions. You could also try hollowing out a giant statue for your base. Make the bedroom in the head while spying on people going about their day. You could probably also get a good lookout at the top of a clock tower, hiring dutiful modrons that keep such good track of things. In the same city, there may be an abandoned amusement park. One of your party sets up shop in the funhouse, while the other on a tilt-a-whirl. Your party may as well just use an abandoned warehouse, with plenty of floor space to section out each facility and all the storage that you need. Or perhaps you inherited a museum where a whole bunch of artifacts are kept safe and secure, perhaps for a good reason. Or maybe you have no budget and your house is completely illusory, becoming tangible at the wave of a hand and disappearing once you're done. Moving out of the city, you might find an abandoned watchtower, giving you a great lookout point beside a mountain pass or crossroads. Or maybe within the mountain you find a cave made entirely of crystal, mine it out to make some coin, or just have bragging points for the most beautiful base. Another beautiful base might involve making a giant seashell your home. The twirling halls make for a confusing but spacious getaway. Or perhaps lean into the confusion by making your base the center of a large maze. You'll have plenty of time to prepare for sieges while they figure it out. Or if you really don't want anyone getting in, perhaps you have an air pocket in the middle of the mountain or underground where you can only access it by teleporting in. But I also think that if you had a house made of candy in the middle of the woods, I would equally be as likely to enter that one. Occupational bastions are ones that revolve around jobs, trade, or entertainment, like a theater. Either retrofit the whole thing as a fun template, or use the stage as your first special facility. Sure, any bastion can have a theater as a special facility, but that is much different than using the shell of a theater for your bastion. Some floor plans are just fun to see what you can do with them. In that same spirit, outfit a restaurant for your own use, or take over for the owner who unfortunately got killed when a dragon tracked you here. Perhaps it is safer in a farmhouse, being able to have plenty of land to grow crops. You'll just have to find the labor. Or maybe you've slept in taverns or inns so much on your adventure, you buy a hotel of your own and see many other adventurers passing through. If adventuring is the name, make an adventurer's guild your game, with parties passing through and using community job boards as you collect a percentage. Or if you just like the fighting, perhaps you make your living space within a gladiatorial arena, moving your plant boxes each time there's a new challenger. Perhaps you're in adventuring for the money and buy a bank to house your earnings. You might just have a few more attacks from the Thieves Guild though. Maybe a safer option would be a smithy, using your talents to provide swords and armor for other adventurers. Or base your bastion around a brewery or distillery in efforts to make the best worst mead that money can buy. Or you build a hospital, being the one who wants to take care of adventurers who come back after ignoring their DM's warnings too much. If it's too late, perhaps manning a graveyard or inside a tomb where you can offer burying or cremating services. Then another option would be to start an orphanage to train up and find good parents for up-and-coming adventurers, or to send Gary after his long-lost father Larry after he dies from an owlbear. Or perhaps inspire them even younger by outfitting a toy shop, creating miniatures and toy wands for any youths still stuck on the latest tablets. Moving on, perhaps a large library is more your style, sorting through books on your downtime and making all the world building your DM did worth it. Or look at the stars with an observatory bastion, dedicating your life to the dangers and magics of the worlds beyond. Or keep it simple with a house made entirely for the purpose of growing flowers and plants, a greenhouse for you to enjoy or a floral shop for others to. There are some crazy natural wonders out there and fun places to make a home base. If you've ever played Minecraft or similar games ever, you get the fantasy. Perhaps your campaign is in the frozen north, so a giant ice fortress of solitude or just a really cool igloo would be one option. Or inside a volcano to match your character's broodiness and edginess. Perhaps you have gills and have your base underwater, or have some magical air pocket if you don't. Or maybe a house on the beach that's always been a dream of yours. Use a hidden beach cove to provide a bit more cover. Or if you're playing out on the ocean, make like Waterworld and have a series of floating docks that you strap together to make your home. Then maybe you come across a small island, making it yours after killing the lonely aboleth that lived there. Going back on land, move into the swamp with a stilt house. Maybe make some deals with your new hag neighbor that moved in. Turns out, she makes a good hireling. If you want to stay away from enemies on the ground, perhaps make a jungle treehouse and slide around on branches for your Tarzan fantasy. Or channel your Ron Swanson with a forest cabin, daring an enemy to get close. Intimidate them further with a mountain fortress carved right out of the rock. Or make a base hang right off a cliff. Sure, a bit impractical, but the views are to die for. A ravine or canyon may also prove a good spot. Can't really see enemies coming, but they will have a hard time finding you. If your campaign is set in the desert, finding an abandoned temple or pyramid would make a pretty memorable base, even at the risks of curses. Or own a saloon in the middle of the Badlands, with plenty of exploration around their hoodoos or in their slot canyons. Or you're going through the Underdark, find a giant mushroom, and enjoy fungus jokes your entire campaign. Or if your party is entirely made up of halflings, perhaps a hobbit home is more your style, burrowing right into the best hill you can find. Obviously, we need specific buildings for your specific character. A church or cult house is a great one for clerics, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a smithy or menagerie of animals inside, just with a churchy kind of flair. For monks, we have a monastery, where a party member that's a rogue regularly interacting with a monk hireling is, in my opinion, very humorous. But you can turn around and have a meditation center or reliquary inside a thieves guild or hideout for your bastion instead. Your wizard or warlock might love to set up house in a school or university. Perhaps they even start a sorority that celebrates big brain activity. Druids will try to convince you to set up camp in a grove, your house blending in with the land, possibly even inside a hollow tree. But on that note, your barbarian is used to more of a nomadic culture, and I would say a caravan, being able to pick up your bastion and carry it with you would be very helpful. Your bard might be on board, but only if they were a traveling circus, bringing their menagerie of animals with them and performing across the land. But if your menagerie becomes too much, perhaps your ranger can convince you to stay put and start a zoo, even using the animals as hirelings or labor force if you need to, just as long as there isn't any fantasy version of PETA in your world. But all this sounds crazy to the sorcerer who just inherited a mansion, and they would prefer cashmere over elephant dung any day. With a world so populated with fantastical beasts, it's hard not to take advantage of some of the lairs they left behind. The first would obviously be an old dragon's lair. Beats having to haul out the gold after you defeat it, just make it your home and done. And maybe make all the kobolds your hirelings there. For underwater campaigns, you might even repurpose a kraken or aboleth lair, even using their old minions as your new hirelings, just a change in management. After you defeat a lich, you can't just let their ziggurat go to waste. You might as well give purpose to all the undead that they left behind. And I mentioned a hag being a hireling before, but what if you make a deal and she was your patron instead, making her hut your own house? I mean, with all of these, who said you had to defeat them to make their lair your home? They all could make for a fun party patron, like making a home inside the walls of a giant's house. You get to move around like the borrowers while keeping the giant rats away for them. I also made a whole video on the genre of little people, which you should check out if that perks your imagination. Your house could also be different by just being a giant mimic. You feed it, and it's a lot cheaper to make new rooms as it expands to fit your needs. Or you hollow out a dead gelatinous cube. Great for oncoming enemies, but maybe not the best for privacy. Another option would be inside a giant mech robot, or anything else mechanical. Make your home among the gears, and who knows, if you figure out why it's broken, you may be able to make it walk again. But if your campaign isn't that futuristic, find a giant insect exoskeleton and have a really unique house floor plan. Which segment of the centipede would you choose? But speaking of being inside of things, did you know astral dreadnoughts have an entire demiplane in their stomachs? Make friends with one and they may just let you come and go. You could also find a long forgotten hive of giant insects. Lots to play with, and I hear it's so comfy you sleep like a pupa. Or you can defeat and overthrow a goblin camp. Make it your own, and all the hirelings come from the citizens of your new government. Or you want a taste of all of these creatures and you start up a monster hunters guild, building up the walls of your home with parts and trophies of all your kills. We mentioned traveling bastions to be pretty useful. Nothing like making it back to your bastions to make bastion turns only a few times during your campaign. So if you're there already, you get to take a lot more. So here are a few to go. A ship, an obvious one, but great for your Pirates of the Caribbean campaigns. Skyships are another, like regular ships, but in the sky. Fill your rooms with more useful things than cannonballs. A spelljammer or spaceship for adventurers in the astral sea, one that I DM now and that you can check out our 70+ episode campaign right now if you join my Patreon and support the channel. Or maybe you want a submarine, a ship underwater, going to the vast depths of the ocean with an open bar in the back. But you can do all of these things on the back of a giant animal as well. A giant turtle that swims, walks on land, or flies in the air. Or you can get around with more style, with just attaching balloons to your house. Your cool points already looking up. If you're lucky, you can get a hold of a floating castle or island up in the sky. With a way to propel it one direction, travel the world in the comfort of your own home. Or take inspiration from Hal's moving castle. Perhaps your castle gets up and walks around instead, kind of like the hut of Baba Yaga. Or your castle is just the lazy type, and teleports around to different spots in the world or to different planes via teleportation circles. Not as off-road, but definitely faster. Another way to travel in style is a train, dedicating each train car to its own special facility and providing a lot of downtime between each destination. Or to bring monsters in again, burrow out a home inside a giant earth elemental, allowing him to take you across the land to his very whim. Sometimes your campaigns either spends a lot of time in a different plane of existence or spends its entirety there. So here are some fun options for different planes that haven't already been mentioned. A Hell Bastion. Not really any different than a regular one, but surrounded by lava and gothic blackstone, it might be nice to make a deal with the devil and get imps as hirelings. While you're down there, if you want another traversal home, try outfitting an infernal war machine. Might be just what you need to ride through the Blood War. If you're in the astral sea and your spelljammer blows up a lot, consider something more permanent on an asteroid with its own air or gravity. Or in a more futuristic campaign, have your very own space station or repurpose an old satellite until aliens come and burst from your chest. The cool thing about the plane of limbo is that matter actually manifests with your thoughts. Do as the Githyanki did and make your house by just focusing really hard. But speaking of thoughts, maybe your bastion only exists in the dream realm, Also pretty traversal as you go to it every time you sleep, and you can sleep anywhere. Your bastion may also exist in a pocket dimension or demiplane, like the spell Magnificent Mansion, or inside a genie lamp like the Genie Warlock can do. Combine this with the maze idea and you might just find a minotaur inside. You could also take advantage of the mirror dimension, jumping through a mirror and having your house just on the other side. In a similar way, jump inside a magical painting of a house or a castle on the wall. I mean, if Bloos could do, you can too. If you want a taste of the far realm, perhaps your entire house is made of writhing flesh. Also pretty malleable, but also very gross. On any given plane, you might find the bones of a dead god, and just as we used animal bones or exoskeletons before, we call this upsizing. Or perhaps your house is comprised of multiple planes itself. One room being in hell, another being in a plane of water, depending on the characters you have, all connected by portals in the form of doors. Beats trying to find prime real estate on Sigil. But you don't have to travel across dimensions, perhaps you travel through time. And there is a specific time period you always come back to do business or relax in a time a little less hectic. But as this all hopefully shows you all, there are literally limitless possibilities of what your bastions can look like. Please use the comments below to add your own ideas for others to reference and get even more inspiration from. But as a small thank you for staying to the end of the video, as I do in all my videos, a little something extra for you to take home. A simple D100 roll table for all of the ideas that we listed here, linked below in the description. Stick around the channel for other flavor deep dives and genre explorations. Until then, go out there and make your worlds a better place. See ya.